What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Pohada Podcast. As usual, Matt Broust here, the host of these conversations, the guy shakily holding the camera for the instructionals now available on the Pohada Podcast YouTube channel, and the guy behind the camera at Pohada Photography. Do check that out on Instagram at Pohada Photography, as well as the podcast at the Pohada Podcast. This time around, we're getting a little more of a philosophical Show Me Something episode with Hayden Buckner of the Academy Eden Prairie in, of course, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I stopped in to take some photos and get some videos of him in action and found myself most interested in his closing thoughts for the day. It's a good bet that we'll be putting out more clips from that day, but I'm a sucker for a philosophical underpinnings discussion. Anyhow, without further ado, my friend Hayden Buckner.
So guys, what's the goal of Jiu-Jitsu? Who said win? I like it. That's the sport goal, right? We want to win, but that's too broad. That's the goal of every sport, right? Who said control? Not get murdered, like that one.
Control that leads to submission.
That's John Danaher's definition. That's a really popular one, and I agree with that one probably the most. Control, I'm paraphrasing, but control that leads to submission. Controlling another human being that leads to submission, right? One of my more recent mentors, coaching mentors in the last 3 months, his name is Greg Souders. I like his definition a lot too. It's similar. It's immobilization. Immobilization that leads to breaking or strangulation, right? So I want to immobilize a body as much as possible to the point that I'm isolating and immobilizing limbs to the point that I can break them, right? Or isolating the neck to the point that I can strangle it, right? And then some of my black belt friends and colleagues, they're like, oh, what about a neck crank? That's not a choke or a like, well, something would break, right? So, we don't got to get too nitpicky, right? But control that leads to submission, immobilization that leads to breaking or strangulation, right? That's the goal of Jiu-Jitsu, right? If we're talking self-defense, that's still our goal of Jiu-Jitsu. Close the distance so we can't get hit, right? We can't get knocked out very easily. And then immobilize them so they can't hit us at all. Then break them, then they can't hit us. Choke them unconscious, definitely can't hit us, right? So my goal, especially in these classes and the way we did it today, isn't to teach you how to do like a perfectly looking, textbook perfect looking choreographed armbar, right? Or choke, or whatever move, right? My goal is for you to be able to isolate a limb and control somebody, immobilize somebody, whatever, to the point that you could actually break a limb if you needed to, right? Or choke somebody unconscious if you needed to. And that's probably going to look messy, right? To be able to do that against resistance, right? And finding a way to do that against resistance, you need to train with resistance to develop those skills, right? So you need to train messy, right? But we need to train in sections like we did a lot today, with lower variability to higher variability. We did a lot of higher variability today, right? But you're not gonna win or look good as often, or maybe feel good as often. But that failure, that trial and error, that's how you're gonna develop real skills that will actually allow you to control a resisting person and submit them, right? So that's our goal, and that's the way I've been trying to run these classes more, right? So if you've been feeling more frustrated with any of the tasks I've given you, that's a good thing, right? So a lot of you heard this same speech in the last class, but a lot of you also weren't here till this class, so I'll go through it one more time. For those of you that were here, who's your best coach? Yourself, right? When you're going for moves, when you're trying to control somebody, you're feeling that resistance, right? You're your best coach, right? Not me. But who's your second best coach? A really close second. What? Your wife? Maybe. Right? Who's your second best coach? Your training partner, right? They're the ones giving you the feedback. Your training partner that's not allowing you to control them the way you want to, right? That's feedback for you, right? So instead of getting frustrated or upset when it's not working, right, which is going to happen, right, remember that that's a good thing. That means you should train with that person more. You should break that down even maybe into smaller slices with resistance and try it again, try it again. Right, and your third best coach might be me, might be YouTube, right? I show you ideas, right? I try to show you high percentage moves with greater physical certainty, try to show you things that will most likely work for you. But at the end of the day, you have to try it and see if that's true. That's what Pedro Sauer always says. Let's see if that's true, right? So if it doesn't feel perfect, that's all right. The Academy, we're dedicated to the hardworking and creative individual and the integrity of the combative martial arts. That's the motto that Greg Nelson started the Academy with, right? So keep that in mind when you're training, right? I don't expect you to get it some perfect way that looked like how I showed it, right? You might find a totally different path to submitting somebody than I showed, and that's all right, right? So take the feedback, the failures as a good thing, and keep training, right? Good work today, guys. Let's line it up. Good work, guys.
You weren't invited. He was invited. Leave him alone. Thanks, Ian.
Good work, good work, good work, good work.
Done with you.
That was all for the camera.
Yeah, that was fun.